Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devon. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or go to the website neverafacenetwork.com. On this episode, we have on author Doug Johnston to talk about his book, Choosing Emotions, Think with Your Head and Acting with Your Heart. We talked about his daughter graduating college and starting her career, the importance of language, his love of quotes, his career in business, knowing the voice in your head, and how a nightly routine with his daughter inspired him to explore emotions and later write this book. His book came out this year, and it discusses 272 emotions and the importance of understanding them. It's filled with quotes, insights, and language to understand yourself better. Make sure to find his book on Amazon, and you can find a link to it in the show notes on this episode. Just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad.
Doug, welcome to an episode of The Imperfect Dads. I really appreciate you taking the time to do one.
Devon, great to be here with you. It feels like friendly territory. Good to meet you visually.
That's right. You know, whenever I thought the name, or whenever a friend and I thought the name Imperfect Dads would be a good name, I didn't realize how many dads would be like, oh, I don't have to be perfect to be on this podcast. Yeah, sign me up. How many episodes do you need? I got you.
Yeah, understood. I've experienced a few eye rolls from my daughter, who I adore. So we're sort of on the same page with that.
That's awesome. Let's start with like one of the most basic questions is how many kids you got and how old are they?
I have one daughter who graduated a year ago from college. She's now a nurse, but the book that we're talking about started when she was in 8th grade at a father-daughter dinner that we had, just the two of us every 2 weeks.
Nice. Tell me you can go and jump in and talk about your book and everything. Yeah, tell me a little bit about your book, because clearly your daughter was like the catalyst for you being like, oh, let's write a book about this. Look at this cool story and everything.
Yeah. So I was in the corporate world for a long time. I helped to manage some really big companies and sort of morphed into being a professional researcher. So I was hired by major U.S. law firms to help dig into really complex, high-stakes litigation and disputes. So at dinner with my daughter when she was in 8th grade, we had started, knowing that I'm a researcher, we'd started a game, which we called College Bowl. Instead of my handing her an allowance, I thought, well, it'd be fun to make her earn it. And so I would bring a list of up to 200 specific questions that I took the time to prepare. The questions could be about anything: history, geography, math, science, politics, sports, you name it. But as she got the answer right, I would slide a $2 bill across the table to her, and we called it College Bowl. Well, she was a good student and she loved it. And I loved it because, you know, as a parent of a young teenager, you're not always sure exactly what's going on in their life, but it was just a great interplay. We laughed a lot. So we called it College Bowl, and it got to the point where I wasn't bugging her for College Bowl dinners. She was bugging me because it was a great opportunity for her to make a little bit extra income or cash, whatever. So one night in 10th grade, she'd been out of school for a full month with an athletic injury followed by an unrelated surgery. So she'd been away from school for a month. Well, a month in 10th grade is an eternity. And so she came to dinner with sort of an uncharacteristically long face. And she said, Dad, my turn to ask the questions tonight. I said, sure. And she said, what is depression? And I faked it. I thought, I'll just act like she's talking about economic depression. So I rattled off an economic depression answer. And she looked at me and she shook her head and she said, no, not that kind of depression, Dad. Emotional depression. And of course, I was a deer in headlights because I knew that it was an extended period of sadness, but I didn't know anything beyond that. Yeah. And I said, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I just, your dad's failing you. I'm going to get to the bottom of this, but I don't know anything. Give me 2 weeks. And so I go back to my office and start digging into depression and, surrounded by Barnes and Noble and Amazon and 2 laptops and books and articles. And, many of them were helpful. But what I found, Devon, that was most helpful was quotes from people who had experienced depression and lived to survive it. So within a matter of days, I came across a first quote that I wrote on a Post-it note. And the first quote was by a very famous author from the 1950s, long time ago, but his name was Rollo May. He had his PhD and he had a bachelor's in divinity, and he was a pretty well-known guy. In the 1950s, Rollo May was one of the first self-help writers before anybody ever even knew the word self-help.
Mm-hmm.
But he had survived depression, and his quote, I'm going to read it, is, "Depression is the inability to construct a future."
Oh,
And the
yeah,
moment
that
I
feels
read
right.
that,
Yeah.
it really grabbed me. I mean, I
Yeah.
thought that's a lot more specific than an extended period of sadness, which I already knew. A couple days after that, I came across a quote from J.K. Rowling. I'm sure you know who she is. She's the
Of
author of the Harry
course.
Potter series. Not that well known, that she suffered terribly from depression before she became the world's most successful
Yes.
novelist.
Yeah.
So her quote about depression as a survivor is, "Depression is that absence of being able to envision you will ever be cheerful again. It's the most unpleasant thing I've ever experienced." Well,
Yeah.
that got my attention too, and I wrote it down. And then 2 days later, another quote from a depression survivor, a woman named Haley Cornell, who's a very talented freelance writer. Her quote about depression: "Depression lies. It tells you you've always felt this way and you always will, but you haven't and you won't."
Yeah.
So here I have three really worthy quotes that I think, well, these are going to help my daughter more than some of those stuffy books. And so I texted them across. It was 10 in the morning. I texted them across town to her. She's in class. She shouldn't be looking at her text, but she was. And I thought, well, hopefully this will help. And so I pressed send, and 2 minutes later, the response is, "I'm crying." Well,
Oh,
I was alarmed. I said, "Sweetheart, why are you crying? These are all people who survived and done well in life." And she
yeah.
responded very quickly, "That's why I'm crying. Thank you, Dad."
Oh, okay. Good tears. Good tears.
Yeah, they were good tears. For a moment she threw me, but we were on to something. And the what we were on to was that quotes from people who've experienced an emotion can often be a whole lot more helpful than dry scientific explanations. And there are plenty of great scientists and psychologists and all in the world, but I was looking for something that would help somebody who was 15 years old, and those three
Yeah.
quotes moved the needle. And so we were onto it. So we quickly morphed into anxiety and OCD and codependence and all sorts of things. And then it got fun. And then we morphed into all sorts of other emotions, like enthusiasm, excitement, wonder, curiosity, forgiveness, whatever. And we were really on to a really significant thing. So 9 years later, 272 different emotions and emotional states, as explained through 8,000 quotes from some of the thought leaders through history. And we did something that's never been done before. If you pick up a standard dictionary, it tells you what an emotion looks like.
Yeah.
An extended period of sadness. You can see that. But what we've done is not only do that, but also add what it feels like. And no emotional dictionary, we call it an emotionary. That's a new word we came up with.
Oh, fun.
No such emotionary ever existed before. And it's really, really helpful. And it's been doing extremely well on Amazon and elsewhere because it's the first of its kind. And if I may, this surprised the pants off of me. Post publication, I submitted the full manuscript, 376 pages, to Claude AI and ChatGPT. The book is done.
Yeah.
I can't change it. What do you think? And each of them responded that it's the single most comprehensive reference on emotions in the English language, which stunned me, and it certainly stunned my daughter. Dad, what have you done? But it's meaningful. So that's what we've done.
That's awesome. That's great. I was born in 1987. And so my teenage years, depression wasn't there wasn't a lot of language around what is depression? It's just I feel sad. It's and I feel heavy, you can say words like that, but I love stuff like this because it gives language to things. And once you add language to things, then you can talk about it. Because if all you do is feel heavy, you feel, and you're is depression what this is? I don't know. And then you ask someone what's depression? And then they're I don't know how to describe it. It's language matters. Having words for things matters. So a book like yours is something I love the ability to highlight because of that.
You're in relatively rare company with what you just said. Language matters. And so part of the research was for me to have gone through, the contributors, 1,800 contributors from all walks of life.
Yeah.
40 different religions, every gender, every continent except Antarctica. We couldn't find a quote from Antarctica,
Sure.
but you get the point. All 16, I'll amend that, 16 different academic disciplines, the sciences, the arts, literature, you name it, all of the top thought leaders, the Nobel winners, the Honda Prize winners, all say the same thing, that we solve problems with words. You might think that a theoretical physicist, for example, thinks in terms of square root symbols and numbers, and they do, but only as substitutes for words. All 16 of these academic disciplines agree at the highest levels that if you can put words to what you're thinking and having a problem with, that you're halfway home. That words are supreme. So naming emotions, which is exactly what you just said, is absolutely vital, as attested to by the smartest minds on the planet.
Yeah. Also, I want to applaud you for your daughter gave you a question that you didn't feel comfortable with your answer with. And instead of, feeling shame, you might have felt some shame and embarrassment from it. But instead of living in that world, you said, you know what? I don't want you to be alone in this. I'm going to help you figure this out. And I genuinely think that's beautiful, because I think if there's a lot of stuff as a parent, as an adult, someone comes up and goes, do you know what this is? And you're like, I've never heard this word before. And I love when people don't stop there. They go, I have no idea what this means. I'm going to go do some work and help try to figure out my best understanding of it so we can keep this conversation going. I think I always want to highlight that, because that to me is that's what a healthy relationship looks like.
Well, thank you. And it started, frankly, because I told her, I said, sweetheart, I'm embarrassed. I don't know. Your dad's a researcher. I'm a professional researcher, and I want to be able to help you, so give me some time. And so I was in a place where I could dig into it, and I did. And fortunately, we came up with something really meaningful. She has since recovered nicely.
Yeah.
She is now a practicing nurse. She graduated from college. She was even invited by the president of her college to give the commencement speech. So that was
That's awesome.
a pretty proud moment. And she wrote a speech that made me cry.
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. That's what's if I can ask, what's your personal relationship with emotions? Because I feel like a lot of us growing up, it wasn't something people talked about. It was just something to figure out on your own, not something to be communal about. I feel like it was you feel sad, you feel angry, go figure that out and come back. Where now it's more hey, let's talk about it. So what's your personal relationship with emotions?
I so love the way you framed that. So there's no guidebook when we're born. Our parents, at least my parents didn't. I suspect your parents didn't hand you a guidebook. Here's what anger is. Here's what enthusiasm is. We all just figured out on the fly. You learn it in school, among your friends, family, scripture, if you're religiously raised, schools, whatever. But we just navigate on the fly, and we just sort of start to, and I'm going to use that word carefully, we navigate. We navigate with our emotions, and that becomes really, really, really significant. Emotions do two things. Our emotional system does two things. Job number one is to keep us away from bad stuff. Touch a hot stove, you'll never touch a hot stove again. Hang around angry, aggressive people, you want to withdraw from them. So we navigate away from bad things, and we navigate toward good things. So we navigate toward curiosity, love, enthusiasm, excitement, wonder, joy, zeal. There are hundreds of emotional conditions, but emotions help us navigate our lives. So they're not anything to be afraid of. Many people are, I have a problem with my temper. If you understand emotions, they are tools to help you navigate. And the moment you understand that they're there to both protect you and to advance you, some subtle changes start to happen in your life.
Yeah. I always view it as it's a roadmap to understand what I view my integrity to be. If something makes me angry, something must not be in line with my integrity. Or I'm no, that can't. Some part of me wants to shut it down. And then it's my anger is a moment to go inward and be why did that make you so furious? Well, because you don't agree that someone should live their life like that. why do you care about how someone, like, it's this whole, an emotion to me is like a whole conversation you can have with yourself and your family about what you care about, honestly.
That's beautifully said. So let me lay out the book because I think it'll help the
Please do.
conversation. If you were to pick up the book, 376 pages, 272 different emotions. So they're arranged alphabetically from abundance to zeal. If you have an issue in your life, it might be depression, it might be anxiety, it might be curiosity, it might be you're writing a paper and you want to know what the great minds of history said about love. If you flip to that page alphabetically, you will find between 20 and 30 quotes from thought leaders through history about their own experience with that emotion. And many of them will bring a tear to your eye. Many of them will make you laugh out loud. But importantly, people have been there ahead of you. And sometimes if you're just kind of stuck wondering, gee, what, I'm not sure the way I feel at all. I don't know what I'm feeling. Reading how other people encountered their emotions, you may say, yeah, that quote right there from that person, that's exactly the way I feel. Well, suddenly your mind is at peace. So there is a very famous clinical psychiatrist out of UCLA by the name of Daniel Siegel. He is a clinical psychiatrist, so he teaches at UCLA, but he's written a number of best-selling books. His name is Daniel Siegel, and he came up with 5 words that I think should be immortalized. And his 5 words are, name it to tame it. I mean, it rhymes. It's easy to recall, right? Name it to tame it. But he found through clinical testing on MRI equipment that when a person could articulate, literally say out loud, I think I'm feeling sad today, or I think I'm feeling disappointed today, or I think I'm being frustrated today, when they could name it, their emotional system calmed down empirically. Yeah. This is scientific proof. So
that's so cool.
Attaching words to the way you feel is very therapeutic. Most often, you and I and many of your audience, have an inner soundtrack, and you sort of waffle between, well, maybe I'm nervous, maybe I'm distracted, maybe I'm angry at my boss. I'm not sure what it is. But the moment you take it out of your inner voice and your soundtrack and you name it, you're making progress. Your system calms down. You're replacing a question mark with a definition, and your system can work with that more easily.
Yeah. Which, like, I don't know if you've had many like medical issues through your life or anything like that, but one of the most exhausting things is like, I have really bad like sinuses and allergies. And until like a doctor was like, hey, let's do it. Like you go to the doctor and run all the tests. And then whenever they finally have an idea of what's going on within your body, you're like, oh, good, I can create a plan around this. That in between limbo time is the worst of like, I just know I feel like crap and I don't know what'll make anything better. It's like your body feels awful. Your mental state is awful because you just feel bad. You feel, and you don't know what answers you can look for or find. And it is, so yeah, it's so important to
100%.
Triage.
You are calmer, you are more resolved. And to put another quote on it, you're replacing a question mark, worry. What is my situation? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You're replacing worry and a question mark with an exclamation point. Now I know.
Yeah.
There's a release that happens, right? And you can plan better. So name it to tame it. And I don't want to get religious in my viewpoint, other than to suggest that the book includes at least 40 different religions. So this is not, the book isn't religious. It's not political. It's not gender. It's all inclusive.
Yeah.
Right. In the Bible, in the beginning was the Word.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Word, because words help. They're therapeutic.
Yeah, they are. And I don't know. I mean, I went to Belmont. I took some religion classes and everything. So I went to like a Baptist school in Nashville. And like,
that's where my daughter went to school.
Wait, are you serious? She went to Belmont?
My daughter graduated from Belmont as a nurse.
Their nursing school is fantastic. So if she was top of her class,
and she got a great job, and she was extremely well qualified.
Dude, okay, so already respect for your daughter that she's top of class and all that stuff. Like, yeah, man, no, trust me, that's right, a Bruin, man. I would have graduated in 2010, so a little bit ago.
A tiny bit ahead of her, right?
A little bit, yeah. I was paving the path for it, yeah. But yeah, like whenever we were there, because I did music business stuff, so we'd all be out like in the quad playing guitar, And the students and the classmates we never saw, I just assumed were nurses because they were working so hard.
My goodness, I had no idea, truthfully, how difficult nursing was
Yes.
until she would call me to prep for, and she would go through 150 pharmaceuticals and what their,
Yes.
suitability was and what the side effects were. And I thought, my gosh, they train them well.
Yeah, they do. But all that to say, I think like studying any religion is fascinating because if you break it down to like word choice, then it is really fascinating just to I can get into a very over analytical mindset also. So like, yeah, to be like, oh man, why did the author of this biblical book choose this word instead of this word? Let me go back to the Greek. Let me figure out what else this could have meant because there's so much. I think whenever I view things through that lens, I'm aware of how much depth there actually is and how much life there is to a text. So no, I probably should have studied English because I am also fascinated by words.
I want to give you a quote, if I may, which follows
Please do,
much
yes.
what you're thinking. So I mentioned that there's 16 different academic disciplines that all agree that words are really the answer. And you say, well, of course they're, but when you hear these quotes, suddenly you get it a little bit better. All right. So you may recall the name of the Sloan Kettering Cancer Clinic in New York City. It's one of the top cancer clinics in the world. Right. Yeah. And you may think, well, at Sloan and Kettering, they must be physicians or, big wheels or whatever. No, they weren't. They were two executives with General Motors, which is the big car company. And Charles Kettering was in charge of engineering. So if you roll the clock back 100 years, Charles Kettering was a wonderful problem solver. In the course of his career at General Motors as head of engineering, he owned 186 different patents.
Oh gosh!
So this guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And his quote about words is this: "A problem well stated is a problem half solved." Well, but it's so simple.
It's so
and
simple.
Yet it's so descriptive. So whether it's engineering or nuclear physics, I'm going to give you a quote from a Nobel Prize winning nuclear physicist, Niels Bohr. He was a colleague of Albert Einstein. They each won Nobel Prizes. This is from Niels Bohr, PhD Nobel Prize winner. What is that we human beings ultimately depend upon? We depend on our words. We are suspended in language. If you're stuck, put words to it. And you'll get out of it. It's that simple. And that comes across all these different academic disciplines. Shakespeare said it too. Fit the words to the action and the action to the words. In Hamlet. I mean, smart people have understood this. The average person like you and me sort of gets stuck here and there and wonders why. Well, here's the answer.
Yeah. That's why I like stories and books and art and music so much, is because like my favorite musicians are the ones who write a song, and as I'm listening to it, I'm like, that's what I've been feeling this whole time. That's what I've been waiting to relate to this whole time. And then you feel this deeply personal connection to that artist for a song they wrote for like the rest of your life.
You have an aha moment, you have a release moment, and you suddenly love that artist.
You do. Because you're like, oh, you communicated an unrest that existed inside of me that I had no idea what to do with.
Write that down. That's a beautiful thought. No, I mean that sincerely.
Okay.
I mean that sincerely. That sentence that you just said, the release of the unrest inside me, that's a beautiful thought. People will relate to that. Okay. If you've ever been there, you relate to that quote, right?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. For your daughter, is she going to stay in Nashville or is she moving somewhere else?
Well, if I may say with a sense of humor, we raised her in California. And for whatever reason, she didn't like California. She, when it came time for college, she said, I'm going to Belmont. And I said, well, I mean, there are a lot of schools in Tennessee. There are a lot of schools. She said, I'm going to Belmont. All right. So I arrived in Nashville from Houston, which is where I live now. And she arrived in Nashville from LA. And within a half an hour, I heard her say her first y'all. And I said, pardon me, sweetheart, did you just say, did I just hear you say the word y'all? She said, Dad, I've been studying. I belong in Tennessee, and she's loved every minute of it. She fit in like a hand in a glove.
Yeah. Also, though, I mean, we moved to Colorado in 2024. We lived in Nashville for 18 years. And so like the amount of people from California that are in Nashville now, she's not alone. I mean, there's lots of Californians that live there. So I'm sure
Quite
she's
a
felt
few
multiple
even.
people.
Thank you. Yes, quite a few even from her high school. So, it's a frequent flyer situation between California and Nashville. But she's a Tennessean.
Cool.
She speaks fluent y'all, as I've said.
That I never picked up the y'all. I feel like so I have 3 kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old daughter, and almost 5-year-old son. And all 3 of them were born in Nashville. And my son is the only one who still has a slight accent, where every once in a while he'll be like, hi. And I'm just like, because I'm very Midwestern. I'm like, I'm more nasally than I'm an accent. And he'll be like, yow. And he is like, draws out syllables and stuff. And I'm like, you were only lived there for like 2 years, man. How do you have the strongest accent out of all of us?
How funny. How funny. And what are their ages again?
Yeah, they are 10, 8, and basically 5. He turns 5 in like 3 months,
Well, God bless you.
There's always something to do. And like, I think I like the timing of your book, because honestly, what every parent I see, or a good majority of parents I see now or talk to now, is like self-regulation is what a lot of us focus on. And a big part of self-regulation for your kids is, what's the emotion you're feeling? How can you communicate the emotion? And how can we be together with this emotion and figure it out together? Because I feel like growing up for a lot of people, their story was, I felt sad. My parents told me to go away until I wasn't sad. Then I came back. Not how I want to parent.
Yeah, not how you want to parent. There is, again, in 272 different emotional states. One of them is parenting. And I'll bet you $1 you laugh out loud a half a dozen times as you read through the pages on parenting and see what other parents have said about it. I mean, honestly, you will laugh out loud.
Okay.
Some of them are deeply insightful. Some of them are almost spiritual. And some of them you will laugh out loud.
Yeah. I mean, parenting's such a fascinating journey, because you get pushed in. Like, it's not like let me dip my toes in. It's not let me see how I feel about this. You hold your child for the first time and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. This is real. So it's just, you go through everything, I feel like, whenever you have a kid.
It happens. My favorite, one of my several favorite quotes about parenting is a bumper sticker that I saw on a truck. That bumper sticker made it into the book. But the bumper sticker quote is, hire a teenager while they still know everything.
Oh, man.
I thought, I'm a businessman. That makes perfect sense to me. I'm a parent. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yep. Yeah. My 10-year-old daughter is already in the energy of like, we'll be like, hey, do you want to do this? She's like, yeah, I know already. And you're like, I think you're just looking for control and identity. And I'm not going to hear the snark in your voice, because I don't think you realize the snark in your voice. So pray for me for the next 8 years of my life.
You got it, man. God bless you.
Tell me about like, are you still working full time? Like, do you still have like a 9-to-5 job, or is like being an author kind of your full-time gig now?
Thanks. I had a long corporate career. I helped to run some pretty big companies. I'm a writer most of the time. When I'm not writing, and I'm working on a third book now, I do what's known as expert witnessing. So I'm hired by major law firms to help them sort out very complex, high-stakes business disputes, and that's fun. That both activities are research-oriented, and I love that. It's fun for me.
Okay, so from that, what I hear also is, are you pretty comfortable with conflict in those scenarios? Because those can be pretty high. I feel like if it's already gone to the lawyer and high companies are arguing about stuff, are you pretty comfortable with like finding the roadmap whenever it's a high tension, high conflict scenario?
What a wonderful question. The answer is yes. I've been yelled at, kicked at, screamed at, and you just hold your ground. Eventually, when the other side, there's an expression in the legal business. If the facts are on your side, you speak the facts. If the facts are not on your side, you pound the table. Well, if somebody's getting angry, there's something wrong in their world.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, one of the sections in the book is about calm and disputes and the like. So I've had the benefit of, and anybody reading the book can get the benefit of seeing what people before you have experienced and noted as good things to do if you're angry. So, for example, Abraham Lincoln, The standard suggestion about anger is count to 10. It is simply delay. This is a passing phase. Gather yourself, calm down. But Abraham Lincoln had what a beautiful personal practice when it came to anger. So you may not know this, but Abraham Lincoln was extremely unpopular with the press while he was a president.
Oh, okay.
They were after him like the press is often after the current president, right? So he had a rough time, and he had lots of enemies. We tend to not think about that because we think he's the much adored president who was assassinated. But while he was in office, it was rugged. And he had a personal practice when he would get angry of going into his office that night and writing a letter to the person who he didn't like. And he'd put every damn word in that letter that he could think of. You dirty, rotten, so-and-so, right? But he wouldn't send the letter. But he took it out of the soundtrack in his head and he put it in the physical world. And then he's not in the emotion. He's looking at it. And then you're in control. Then you're in control. So when an emotion gets the best of it, it's when we're in it. We're in fear. We're so fearful we don't realize, wait a minute, I don't have to be fearful of this. I can be calm, right? The goal, therapeutic goal, is to take a look at yourself from a distance and not be in your emotions, and then you're in better command.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to learn to like detach yourself from yourself, because that's kind of what it is. And that is, I always feel like an emotion can be like as if you're standing in the ocean and a tidal wave, like you're standing there, you're jumping the waves and everything. And then there's that one wave that's taller than you, and you're like, here we go. Let's see how this one turns out. And that's how emotions, I feel like, can feel sometimes. It's like, I'm in charge. And then there's always some part of your day where it's like, all right, this really challenge you. Let's see how you deal with this one.
Thank you for that. There's a very successful psychologist from University of Michigan by the name of Ethan Kross. He's written a couple of bestsellers, and he uses a term called self-distancing. In essence, it recommends speaking out loud. You know what? I'm really starting to get angry. And instead of you bottling it up and you start to get steaming mad and grit your teeth, if you simply say, you know what? I'm starting to get angry. All of a sudden, you're not in it. You're looking at it, and that gives you control over it. So Dr. Kross uses the word self-distancing, but the effect is the same. Get it out of the soundtrack in your mind, get it in where you can hear it or write it down as President Lincoln did, and suddenly things don't look so serious. Or you can plot out a better path. Yeah.
Which also, though, so much easier said than done. I would like to think I do that every single time, but that's not reality. But I think life is filled with these really simple answers that I really like to complicate. And that's definitely one of them. Like, hey man, you're bristling. Your shoulders are up here. Like, just say you're getting annoyed with stuff. Like, just say, and you're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not that annoyed. And it's like, your arms are up here, man. You're like, you're so bristled. Just admit it.
It sounds like you've got it kind of figured out, but literally saying out loud, if you're on the freeway and somebody cuts you off, your first reaction might be not you, but another person their first reaction might be to extend their a finger at the person that cut them off. If you will instead, and it's so tempting to do that, we know.
Yeah.
But if you will simply say, you know what, that guy really annoyed me, and then you'll probably say the next thing is, you know what, he had a right. He's got a car. He's in a hurry too, right?
Yeah.
Well, suddenly it's done. It's behind you. You're not looking for that car for the next 5 miles. I'm going to cut in front of that guy, right? You're out of it. You have called it, you've named it, you've dismissed it. And that's very helpful.
Yeah, it is. But also I think like, I think that's what's fascinating to me about that is like, I can tell if I'm in a good headspace or not. Because like if I'm able to just let it roll off, be like, oh, cool, that guy's in a rush. Hope wherever he gets to go, hope he gets there. But there are the days in which I'm like, oh, I can't let this go. And it's like, cool, I am not centered. I am not in a good place because a stranger who I will never see again in my life matters more to me than the rest of everything else. So all that tells me is I gotta spend some alone time or something later to deal with this. That is
so beautifully said. So I'm going to, just for a moment, I'm going to talk about the voice in your head. Everybody on earth has a voice in their head. It's the voice you hear in the shower, in the car when you're alone, in your bedroom, in your quiet moments. And the goal is to make best friends with the voice in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Make friends with the voice in your head. It is your ally.
Yeah.
Talk to it nicely. Talk to yourself nicely. You'll be amazed at the outcome.
Yeah. Yep. That's such a sadly, I think that's something you have to learn and work at. Like, it's not like, I don't think that's something you intrinsically do. I think you do have to realize, like, hey, we're both on the same side here. Let's figure this out together, as opposed to like, yeah, being younger is like my inner voice might have not been kind to me, might have been over analytical, over anxious or something like that. And I was just more like, well, I guess you win because you're the inner voice. And it's like, no. Have a conversation with that voice. Talk to that voice. Figure it out together.
Make it your best friend. Make it your
Yeah.
best friend. And if you understand that is the goal of a happy life, is to make best friends with your inner voice,
Mhm.
that's small and it's subtle, but it's really true. So many people are afraid of the voice in their head. Well,
Mhm.
I always screw up. No,
Yeah.
no, you don't always screw up.
No.
You don't need to talk to yourself that way.
No. Or just like tell a friend, like someone who you love and someone you trust with that vulnerability, to be like, hey, for some reason, every time I do something, the only thing I think of is that I'm going to mess this up too. Just admit it to someone. Just admit it. And I hope people have people in their life in which they can say that. I'm in a mental space in which I feel like every time I touch something, it breaks. And I don't like that. And I can't get out of this route. And I can't get out of this pattern. And then hopefully someone can be like, yeah, you messed up a couple things, but that's not you. Like you can find community, you can find love through that. But hopefully, I hope people have the people in their life in which they can lead without vulnerability.
Good people, your friends have your interests in mind.
Mhm.
If you say I'm a terrible writer and a friend says, no, you're actually a good writer,
Yeah.
listen to them. Good friends are trying to nurture you.
Yep.
And if they're not trying to nurture you, they're really not your friend.
Usually. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally there's the honest disagreement, of course, but your friends are generally interested in you doing well.
Yeah.
Surround yourself by people like that.
Yeah. Other thing I wanted to ask you is, since you learned about all these emotions, you said 272, right? That's how many you wrote about in the book.
Yes.
Which one sticks out to you? Which one was one of the most fascinating ones to learn about or to research and find quotes about?
There are two. Thank you for asking a brilliant question. So there are a couple in the course of my research that really moved me to understand. So one of them that I misunderstood terribly was the word ego.
Yeah.
And ego is more of an emotional state than an emotion, but it's definitely an emotional state. So, Devon, when I was 10, my mother hung the moon for me. She was, I adored her. She was an athlete. She was an artist. She was a writer. She was socially adept. She could talk to anybody about just about anything. And one day, in a moment of just sort of, wow, that's my mom, I said, how do you do it, Mom? How do you do all these things well? And she looks at me and she points at me and she says, it takes a big ego to succeed in this life. All right. Well, that was my mom, and she was an unqualified success. I accepted that as at face value, unfortunately, because ego is not a really good thing. So,
Yeah.
if you move the clock forward a few decades, as I started to research the book, I finally got to ego.
Yeah.
One of the 272 conditions. And about 11 one night, with my trusty little dog curled at my feet, I'm finally at ego, and I read a quote from Carl Jung, who is the founder of analytical psychology. Carl Jung is a brilliant man. I mean, he's just extraordinary. It's almost as though he came from a different dimension. He's so insightful.
Yeah.
But his quote about ego is, a young man spends the first half of his life building up an ego, and the second half of his life understanding how important it is to dismantle his ego. And I read it. I must have read it a dozen times. And I finally buried my head in my hands because I realized frankly, what an ass I'd been in my corporate life. I was a ego driven, my way or the highway kind of guy. And I thought, boy, I have a lot of explaining to do and apologizing to do. Well, fortunately, that night I worked past midnight and I came across another quote from Eckhart Tolle. That's a name you probably know. He's a writer who's reached over 100 million people in his podcasts and books, including The Power of Now. Eckhart Tolle wrote, yes, of course, ego is a bad thing. It's a false front you present to other people to keep them at bay. But he said the good news about ego is that that sneaks up on you, once you realize that that's what you've been doing, that you've been presenting a false front to people, you can't fake yourself out anymore. I mean, it starts to go away. So it almost starts to go away on inspection once you realize that's what you've been doing. So I took heart from that.
Yeah.
Many writers in history have agreed with Eckhart Tolle and Carl Jung about ego. The other word that really changed me to understand better, and there's several, but another one that comes to mind is trauma. If you'd asked me 5 years ago what I knew about trauma, I would have responded, well, something to do with a car accident and an ambulance and an emergency room. That's really all I would have been able to articulate.
Yeah.
But trauma is a very special and extremely important word to understand. And I want to define it as an event occurs to you that overwhelms either your physical or your emotional capacity to deal with it. Something happens to you that you can't cope with and your system shuts down. All right. So what does your emotional system do? Number one, it protects you. Number two, it helps you advance your life. But in trauma, you're knocked unconscious fully or partly, your system shuts down.
Yeah.
But your system is there to protect you. It doesn't like to be shut down. And so it prioritizes what happened when we were shut down.
Yeah.
And the great traumatologists of the world, including Bessel van der Kolk, it's a Dutch name. He taught medicine at Harvard and he became well known at Boston Hospital. Bessel van der Kolk has written a perennial New York Times bestseller, millions of copies, called The Body Keeps the Score. And in it, he writes that trauma leads to something called repetitive compulsion. So if, for example, someone in your life has been raped, what a terrible thing. Rape is traumatic, both physically and emotionally, and your system shut down. Well, many men, sadly, would say to a woman rape victim, oh, please just get over it. Just stop talking about it. Put it out of your mind, right? But that's not the way their system is built. Your system is prioritized to repeat that episode until you can put words to it.
Yeah.
And what Bessel van der Kolk found was that as painful as it is to revisit trauma, once you revisit it in depth and you can assign words to exactly what happened.
Yeah.
The smell of the man's cologne, the noise of the car in the driveway.
Yeah.
Suddenly you take it out of a fearsome traumatic memory and you can re-record it. Being able to attach words to fill in the blanks when your system shut down is often the answer to trauma. And I had no understanding of that.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I'm not a psychologist, but like knowing people have done like a rapid eye movement, like that type of therapy and stuff. They're like, no, this was just so my system could calm down enough that I could approach the trauma correctly and then figure out what my next steps are. Because your nervous system just goes like, or your emotional system goes into like, I thought I was going to die. So it goes back into, I'm going to die if I enter into this space. And of course you're not going to know how to get over that because your body keeps telling you you're about to die. That's not a calming space. That's not safe.
You don't want to look at it because it was painful, and yet your system is fixated on it. And again, I'm not a psychologist, but you alluded to eye movements, EMDR, QNRT. There are some therapies that help your emotional system reset, which is what is needed after a traumatic experience. So you're obviously pretty well versed in this. I'm impressed.
Thanks. I also want to say I love Carl Jung because I think he all of this discussion of shadow work is also where I started to redefine what I thought ego was also, and all of the thought of like I think shadow work is just a beautiful way to give yourself more grace. Because I always thought that like the things that are quote unquote wrong with me or ugly with me, like my shadow, I needed to conquer, I needed to overcome. And there's a fascinating level of like self-acceptance of like, hey, this is part of who you are. And like it deserves love too, as opposed to trying to hide it, trying to dominate it or anything like that. And like I think Carl Jung opens up a lot of doors to a lot of love you didn't know you needed for yourself.
He's deeply insightful. He writes various quotes that are in the book. About the greatest joy in your life is understanding who you really are, and it's a journey. Every single human being suffers We don't
Yeah.
like to talk about it, but every single human being suffers. And if you'll read in the book, for example, quotes from people who you would never have expected suffered that way,
Mhm.
you go, my gosh, I'm not the first. I'm not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it is a community and we all share emotions. It's very
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
It's very
It
helpful.
is. Yeah. I'm a really big fan of Richard Rohr, who's a Franciscan monk. And he's very big on, I don't know if it's a Franciscan thing to be like, hey, here's your first phase of life. It is about your ego. It's about your kingdom. It's about realizing what kingdom you want to build and building it, honestly. And the second phase of your life is you looking up and being like, what was I sprinting towards? Like, who was I during? Like, what the heck was this? And sadly, some people never enter into the second phase of their life. They just continue to constantly build their kingdom. But hopefully there's a moment where you should look up and you're like, wait, hold on. There's so much more to life than what I thought I was building. So how do I come to terms with this? How do I deal with this? And it is deeply helpful to be in tune with that energy.
There's a quote in the book, nobody becomes wise by accident.
Yeah.
You have to decide, what am I really about? Let's
Mhm.
take off this ego false face.
Yep.
What am I really about?
Yeah.
And if you realize that that's the wisdom of the ages, the great sages, Buddha, Jesus, Moses, I mean, the common theme is, who are you really?
Yeah.
And that's really the goal of life.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
It
love,
is.
it's a lot of things, but the goal of a happy life is knowing who you really are, uh, and being really comfortable with it. You're probably familiar with the actress Meryl Streep.
Mhm.
She is a 4-time Oscar winner, which puts her in tied, I think, with Katharine Hepburn is the only 4-time Oscar winners in history. So
Mhm.
obviously she knows how to act. But
Yeah.
there's a great quote from her in the book, and I won't get it perfectly word for word, but it runs like this: when she was a young woman, her mother said, "Meryl, you can do anything," and her response to her mother saying, "Meryl, you can do anything," was, "I believed her." All right, so look what happened. Uh, she, look what happened.
That's awesome.
She became a 4-time Oscar winner, but her specific quote that you'll appreciate is, "What's the strangest thing about you?
Mhm.
Make that your goal in life."
Yeah.
And I went, wait a minute, did I read that correctly? Meryl Streep said, find out what is the most unusual thing about you and emphasize that. That is your gift. Figure it out. So
Yeah.
in my case, as a kid, I inherited a remarkable memory.
Yeah.
And I got it, I think, from my father. But, I mean, I'm me, I'm not my father.
Mhm.
And I found when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, I could turn a street corner and see a face in the crowd and say, that man is Bill Jones. I last saw him in March of 4 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it happened in a nanosecond. And I thought,
Yeah.
this is weird. And I'm going to suppress it because my
Mhm.
brothers are going to start to torment me. And I
Yep.
suppressed that. Well, it's a few decades later. And here I am putting together a book about quotes that made extensive use of my memory. And I finally brought that weirdness to the fore.
Yeah.
Nobody ever, Devon, ever accused me of being a great athlete. I mean, nobody ever accused me of being a great athlete, but I had a good memory and I had a couple of the things that were helpful. So whatever it
Yeah.
is that's weird about you,
Mhm.
pause and look at that. Is this
Yeah.
actually my gift?
Yeah.
And that was what Meryl Streep was getting at.
Yeah. I also have the same curse of I remember like almost everything. I remember people's faces. I remember the last time I saw them. And I try it's like in my head whenever I go to say hi to someone, I'm like, oh hey. And then I'm like, oh, then they're like, oh hey, what's your name? Like I remember all these random little details. And I'm like, calm it down. Like I don't lead with them, but whenever the moment arises, I'll usually share them. Be like, oh, don't you remember we hung out here? We did all this, but like I have the same thing in my head. I see someone, I'm
Well,
like, it's like I have
you
a
understand.
Rolodex.
How
Yeah.
wonderful to chat with you about that because you appreciate it. Well, I found that I was embarrassing people because I knew their names and they couldn't remember
Yes.
mine.
Absolutely. Yes. Yep.
And then
Mhm.
I
Yep.
started to suppress it, right?
Yeah.
Because it was embarrassing. I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. Well,
Yeah.
then I came to the conclusion it's a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
well, no, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just it needs proper expression.
Correct. Yep. I want to use my memory to be something that connects me with people, not something that makes someone feel shame and embarrassment. And because, like I might be, I used to work at a dentist's office. So like I would remember like tooth numbers for cavities they gotten filled, stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, how's tooth number 32? And like something like that in my head. And I'd be like, you can't lead with that at the grocery store, man. Just be like, oh, hey, do I know you from somewhere? And then shake their hand. But like,
oh my.
Yeah. So it's,
all right. So look what happened here. There's your inner voice that says tooth number 32. And then you pause because it hadn't come out of your mouth yet. And you think, I'm going to have to change this up because I don't want to embarrass him. Well, how you doing? How about the the Memphis hockey team? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you change the topic, right?
You do.
If you can get to the point where your inner voice and your outer voice are the same.
Yeah.
What a wonderful goal.
Yeah.
What a wonderful goal.
Yeah. But I'll probably, in the interest of time, I'll start wrapping down the episode. First question is, do you remember any backup names you had for your daughter? Like, do you remember what you almost named her besides her actual name?
Yes. So when she was born, her given name is Alexandra, and we came up with a unique name, Xanna, Xanna. It was unique. Mm-hmm. It was a nickname for Alexandra. And when she got to age 5, she called her mother and me together and she said, do not call me Xanna anymore. And we were surprised that she had that sort of presence of mind.
Respect.
And ultimately, she settled on Lexi, Lexi as her nickname, but she picked it. And she said, I'm changing my name. It's part of my given name, but I want to be known as Lexi. And so I looked at her mother and she looked at me and we said, Lexi's fine, but don't change it again because that's troubling to people. It's too hard to keep track of somebody changes their name. She understood that. So she started out as Alexandra, then Xanna, and then she's been Lexi since she was small.
That's awesome. Also, serious respect to your daughter, or for you guys also, to be like, okay, this is what she wants. Like, let's do it. Like, let's go for it. And that's kind of hilarious. I can also imagine either of my daughters at 5 being like, you're not going to call me that anymore. And me being like, okay, all right, there we go. Next question. Do you have like a favorite TV or movie dad, or one that comes to mind whenever I ask that question? Like TV or movie dad, favorite one that comes to mind whenever you think of that question.
A movie dad from long ago. Fred McMurray and My Three Sons. He was just the perfect father. He listened. He participated. He was trustworthy. He was, in my mind, a model of the dad I wanted to be.
Cool. I've never actually watched that. Well, how long ago was it on?
It was on a long time ago. I'm sorry, before you were born, but it ran for a long time. It was one of the top shows in television. My Three Sons was the name of it, and it was among the top 10 TV shows in the 1960s. I hesitate to date myself, but yes, that's what happened.
Perfect. Next question. What is your replacement curse word? Someone cuts you off, you're not in a good mental space, and you want to say a curse word out of them. What do you say instead? Or what did you say instead when your daughter was younger?
Oh, my aching tomatoes. Oh, my aching tomatoes. All right. Well, it's not one syllable, right? It forces me to slow down even to say it.
Yeah.
So that's my substitute for curse word is, oh, my aching tomatoes. And it makes me laugh. So it takes me out of being angry.
Yes. My goal for a replacement curse word is humor. Because if I can then change my energy to laughter, then I'm going to detach a little bit easier. But
you're smarter than me. You figured out a one word, but I go with the long phrase, which forces me to slow down.
I'm just going to tell you that if anyone ever says, oh, my aching tomatoes besides you, I will be very surprised. And I think you're going to hold the trophy for oh, my aching tomatoes.
You heard it here first.
That's awesome. Next question. What was like one of your favorite activities or toys to play with your daughter?
She was the queen of bounce houses.
Okay.
And I loved doing them with her. Mm-hmm. And her friends understood that if there was a bounce house, Mr. Johnston was going to be in it with us. And it was just joyous. It was, she loved bounce houses. I love bounce houses. It's not a toy, it's an activity. But if there's a toy, she's a frisbee thrower deluxe.
Okay.
So here I am as the father, here's the way you hold it. And, you need to spin it in a certain way. And she said,
Yeah.
well, that's fine, Dad, but why don't you just stand over there by that tree? And she throws it to me perfectly every time. I said, how on earth did you do that? It took me a long time to learn how to throw a frisbee. She said, well, you showed me how, and I just did it.
Let's do it.
So what the heck?
What the hey? Well, I mean, it's just, you just flick your wrist. You just do this. And it's like, cool. That's fine. This wasn't something I worked on and studied.
Well, then she started doing it outside. She could do an outside flip.
Yeah.
And I said, sweetheart, this is ridiculous. You're not supposed to know how to do that. And she laughed. And of course, that only made her want to do it more often.
Oh, of course. Yeah. There's sometimes your kid can surprise you in a good way. And that's a good way for your daughter to surprise you.
Yes.
And then last question for you is like parenting advice. Like, what's the parenting advice you give to a dad? Or it's just like anything you learn about fatherhood that you'd like give as advice to someone who's also a father.
Thank you. This might be peculiar to my daughter and me, but the game College Bowl that we created, where I would bring to dinner just father-daughter, just the two of us, no other dogs, pets, siblings, spouses, anything around, just the two of us at a restaurant of her choice. If she were on this call right now, she would say that was one of the most meaningful stretches of our time together. And for me to slide $2 bills across the table every time she got a right answer sort of oriented her toward the importance of knowledge and command. And then we got giggling and laughing. And, occasionally I would ask her something really hard, like give me the quadratic formula. And she would say, oh, well, Dad, I need to go to the restroom. And I realized she was going to the restroom to Google the answer. And so she would come back to the table and I'd say, oh, no, you don't. I'm wise to that. Hand over the cell phone. We won't be doing that. Well, but it was laughter, right? I mean,
that's awesome.
It was just fun.
That's so awesome. That's really sweet. Or it clearly created good memories for you and your daughter. And it was a very tight connection. That's so awesome.
Well, I'm very lucky. She's a terrific gal, and she's got a good head on her shoulders. Hopefully I helped out. Hopefully I didn't hold her back.
Yeah, right. I doubt you did. And then last thing for you is just like moment for self-promotion. So like, if we want to find your book, website, Amazon, like how do we find your book, find out more about you, all that good stuff?
Great. So Choosing Emotions, thinking with your head and acting with your heart. So Choosing Emotions is available on Amazon, on Ingram Spark, Barnes & Noble, lots of different places. The website is choosingemotions.com. The social handle is Choosing Emotions. It's available in hardback, paperback, and e-versions. It is a joy and a blast to read. It is also enlightening. There will be times when you laugh out loud. It's so funny. There will be times when you say, my gosh, if I'd known that 5 years ago, I would have, been on a faster path than I am now. There is wonderful wisdom and humor from some of the world's greatest minds. Take advantage of it. It's there.
Yeah. For the most part, that's what I got for you. Just thanks for spending some time talking about your book, telling me about your life and your relationship with your daughter.
Love talking with you. And the fact that you're a Belmont Bruin speaks volumes.
Yeah, of course. And seriously, congrats to your daughter for making it through the Belmont nursing program and doing as well as she did. Because it is, they take themselves very seriously over there.
They do. They have an extremely high acceptance rate for graduates in getting jobs, and she did the right thing. And in the right place. So that all makes a difference. Love talking with you. Thank you for having me. What a blast. We've laughed, and that's been great. I feel like I know you.
Perfect. I feel like I know you too. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, Devon. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Imperfect Dads Podcast. And make sure to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. Music, editing, and production is all done by me. Make sure to tune in on Mondays and most Thursdays for new episodes. This podcast is part of the Never a Phase Network. Make sure to go to neveraphasenetwork.com to learn more about them.